As long as I can remember, the First World War has been one of my greatest historical passions. It's just something about the moral ambiguity made it just its understanding kind of a lot more of a challenge. In World War II, obviously on a person by person basis, it's still gray. No one is usually evil or straight good, but from a macro point of view, Second World War is very good versus evil. Nazis versus allies. You really have this sense of justification, where World War I is just a mess. It's so hard to muddle through what happened, why it had to start. It's just it's a tough thing to really nail down. You can't really point the finger at any one side. And when it comes to the world of gaming, World War I has been all but absent from the scene. Whether it was the misnomer that trench warfare was the only form of engagement found in the First World War, or the misnomer that somehow that wouldn't be tons of fun in a video game, World War I has just been neglected stepchild of its big dramatic battle of good versus evil that is World War II. Now, finally, the long drought of World War I being found only in these small kind of dedicated groups on PC games. Verdun is one that comes to mind. It's kind of a simulation. It's small, indie team. Good game still. But EA and DICE have blasted onto the mainstream scene here with Battlefield 1. Now, Battlefield's reputation as a franchise precedes itself. Multiplayer is the name of the game here. So naturally, I'm going to start with the campaign. Now, DICE needs to stop using the fact that their primary audience goes straight to multiplayer as an excuse for these subpar campaigns. Sadly, this entry is no different at all. Basically, it feels to me like a tacked-on mode. It recycles all of its multiplayer maps, uses them as criminally dull single-player missions. They put them into these small kind of war stories. They just leave much to be desired. Now, the idea of using short stories to give the player kind of like a tour de force of the global conflict that was the First World War, it's actually a really brilliant idea. It's pretty original. Some of the characters introduced are very well written. They're interesting people that lend kind of the lackluster gameplay, some playability, some motivation to move through and kind of see what happens. The main problem here is that DICE doesn't seem to understand that what makes their multiplayer suite so acclaimed and popular are these massive scale battles that immerse players in the carnage of war. You jump in the campaign and you're treated to a shitty version of Dishonored, sneaking around knocking these really stupid AI enemies out until eventually we're caught, and then you just transform into Master Chief and just slaughter all the Germans like they're Covenant grunts. This is not Medal of Honor. This is not James Bond World War I edition. When I read the description, storm the beaches of Gallipoli, I expect the scale that we've seen from all these countless Normandy beach invasions from Call of Duty, the Medal of Honor on, even Medal of Honor, which is kind of a, you've always been kind of a lone wolf in that franchise. Even they did a massive scale Normandy beach battle. It just doesn't make any sense. Gallipoli was a huge undertaking that saw thousands of British, Australian, and New Zealander soldiers just slaughtered on the rocky beachhead by Ottomans that just dug into the cliffside. As they came to the beach, they just got slammed with machine gun fire, rifle fire, artillery. It was an absolute disaster, and it was a bloodbath. But Battlefield 1 portrays something more akin to me and my buddy playing war in the backyard when we're 12. Storm the beaches of Gallipoli, and the guy that I'm playing as runs onto the ramp on the beach with like 4 dudes, and there's a couple of Ottomans up there shooting at you. It feels empty and alien and just rushed. There was no time. I don't know if they just didn't have the cash to make these like really huge war scenes or what. But I mean, come on, DICE. This is the first time World War I has been brought to the spotlight in gaming. Where is this? that's what we want to see. Now, obviously, you wouldn't want every mission to be like that, but you need to hit on a visual staple like that. That's what people are expecting to see. It's really what they want to play at least once. Give that to them. And then on top of that, the final war story puts the player in the boots of a Bedouin woman named Zara. And she is with T.E. Lawrence, or Lawrence of Arabia, who's fighting an insurrection against the Ottoman Empire. Now here, this is like a kind of a, few numbers versus much larger odds. And sneaking around or using guerrilla warfare makes a lot of sense. And had the other sections in the campaign been more appropriately scaled to fit the war, the First World War, which is massive scale where you had, hundreds and upon hundreds of men dying daily or weekly, this closing chapter of you sneaking around, tossing grenades, blowing them up, going around, slitting throats and stuff, that would have been actually a really great change of pace from all the really constant, heavy, massive scale battles. Instead, it's just simply more of the same thing. Just very disappointing. So with that said, let's get to why we really came here. Since DICE seems just utterly incapable of creating a great single-player experience, they have to deliver a memorable multiplayer one, and that they did. Now, at first glance, there wasn't too much different here from previous Battlefield installments. You've got your Conquest, Rush, Domination, and of course Team Deathmatch. What makes it different this time around is the take and hold objectives of these modes, which has always been the same, just fits the theme and also the gameplay and the mechanics for First World War. When you have a team that uses the classes to the best of their ability, which is easier said than done sometimes, it creates this kind of like combination of rock, paper, scissors. Are both teams using their classes to the utmost of their ability? And then, of course, sort of like a tug of war where you're, going, charging and then retreating, charging, retreating. Of course, tug of war is instead played with ropes. It's machine guns, tanks, and rifles instead. So there's truly nothing like charging up this hill. As I play medic a lot, you're reviving wounded soldiers, running up, getting shot down, running, attacking, you bayonet a guy in a trench, tossing grenades. And you get up and you've lost a bunch of dudes, but, when you have a coordinated assault, you take it, you get your flag up on the hill, and you start celebrating. Yeah, man, we got it. All right, man, we got to hold this position. And then before you can even catch your breath, a fucking tank busts over the hill and starts slaughtering everyone, and the whole cycle continues. It's just, there's nothing like it in first-person shooting multiplayer games right now. It's just, there's something so unique, and it's just I haven't had this experience with multiplayer shooters before. Battlefield 1 absolutely nails this, and of course we all know DICE, great sound, great shooting, the mechanics, the weapons feel so powerful. They just, when they hit the mark, you can just tell, just a really good first-person shooter outside of the setting and weapons. You have to nail the feel of the firing and the impact, and man, do they ever. Perhaps the best use of this setting and that kind of tug-of-war feel is the new mode called Operations. So one side is attacking and the other side is defending for the whole game. Now this mode opens up a little bit with a little cutscene, soldiers reading letters to home, and it goes around and kind of shows you the different maps, and then you get a little historical narration. It just really sets the mood and makes it feel like World War I. This mode, Operations, has definitely become kind of the main entree for me and all my friends that play. It takes the best of all the game modes and just combines them in these huge 64-player slug matches that last up to longer than an hour sometimes. And since the most recent update, DICE has given the attacking team 250 spawn tickets before they are out of the game, because before you only got 150 and you had to take multiple sectors over a long period of time, and it was something like a 90% winning average for the defending team. So it was kind of broken when it came out, so they've since fixed that. However, for this review, I'm going to grade based on the original terribly unbalanced version, but it was still a lot of fun. Even if you didn't win, it was just a blast anyways. So yes, I mean that's kind of a quick overview of the game. I truly do love this on a personal level. As an amateur World War I historian, I'm so glad to see what Battlefield 1 did. And they did what many thought impossible. You know, they brought the oft-ignored World War I into the mainstream gaming scene here without completely making it like a World War II game. You know, it doesn't feel like they just ripped the swastikas off of everything and put a World War I sticker on it. You know, some are complaining because there's some extreme liberties taking. I mean, there's some soldiers that have submachine. You know, the different classes have submachine guns, semi-automatic rifles. And I get that can upset some people, but you have to make the game balanced, give the classes a different feel. And these weapons, I've done some research. The weapons you see in the game were invented and or produced and used in the war, just not on this scale. The submachine guns and the semi-automatic rifles were used more by airmen, if you can believe it, because they were not very reliable in the mud and water and just grime of the trenches. Their actions would get stuck really bad, so that's why they used the bolt action. They had better technology, but the bolt action rifles were already available. They were already produced, so they didn't have to pay to do a lot more, and they were just more rugged and wouldn't get jammed up as easily. So it's still not. It's not that you're not using World War II weapons, So they did a good job of doing research and making it feel accurate to the best of their ability, with still making a really fun, balanced multiplayer game that I think is the best multiplayer suite we've seen from any of these shooters so far in 2016. So, the end of the game, end of the day, end of the game, end of the day or end of the game, Battlefield comes home from the war to end all wars with a 0 HP score of 8.5 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you have any questions or comments or differing opinions or same opinions, I want to hear all of it. Comment below. Have you played it? Are you going to pick it up? If not, please join us. If you go onto our Twitter, go ahead and hit us up. We're 0HP at 0HP Gaming. You can ask me if you want to direct message me. I'll give you guys my my Xbox gamer tag so we can play. We're always looking for a group that likes to really play the way the game is meant to. There's no other experience like that when that happens. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys in the trenches. All right, everybody. We will catch you next time. Later!